Good morning, everyone. We're going to give it just a few minutes or a few moments to let everybody get in and get settled. Welcome to the Voice of Milk Coffee Chat series. Happy you could join us today. Happy Friday. All right, I see some folks joining. I think we'll get started. I just want to welcome everybody to our Voice of Milk Coffee Chat series. Today we're going to talk about Wisconsin policy, give a budget preview, update on where things stand in Wisconsin. My name is Chad Zuleger. I am the Director of Government Affairs for DBA, and joining me today is our contract lobbyist, Shawn Pfaff from Pfaff Public Affairs. Real quickly, just want to do a reset, let everybody know where things stand in state government here in Wisconsin. We've got a pretty unique set of circumstances nationally. We've got a Democrat governor and a Republican-controlled legislature. Governor Tony Evers has served 2 terms and waiting to find out whether he's going to be running for re-election in 2026. Expect an announcement probably late this year, maybe early next year. And our legislature, as you might know, is partisanly split, tightest margin in 15 years after a redistricting occurred last year. GOP controls the assembly 54-45. That's a significant drop from previous sessions. And in the Senate, the majority has shrunk to 18-15. Again, a really slim majority. Last year, Wisconsin Act 94 allowed for the redistricting in a mid-census timeframe, and that's what caused a significant shift in the margins. GOP maintained their control, but that certainly changes the dynamics going into this legislative budget session. A reset for where we stand as we enter budgeting. Our budget cycle runs every 2 years. Currently, the Legislative Fiscal Bureau projects a $4 billion state surplus. We're expecting new numbers from that bipartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau in the next few weeks. That gives us significant opportunities. And of course, with divided government, we've got differing set of priorities on what to do with that surplus. The governor has indicated he is looking for targeted tax cuts, childcare investments, additional funding to UW and K-12, and a big issue facing all of Wisconsin is PFAS mitigation and how to deal with some of the PFAS issues in our state, dealing with land and water quality. The governor, at his early State of the State address, declared 2025 the year of the kid, and that is reflective of his policy priorities going into the budget cycle. While the Republicans are focused on tax cuts across the board, and the Joint Finance Committee has begun its process. They've already held 4 statewide hearings on the budget to take input from citizens around the state. They held those hearings in Kaukauna, Wausau, Hayward, and West Allis. So getting a real broad cross section of input. DBA did submit comments, and we had members speak at the Kaukauna hearing. Our priorities and things that we've been working on with lawmakers and with the governor's administration going into this budget process, continuing to effort in our clean water initiatives. A bill that we've been working on in the last 2 sessions would create a managed grazing pilot program. That bill has been introduced and heard in committee in both the Assembly and in the Senate. It incorporates a $500,000 annual funding mechanism that would provide grants to farmers implementing a managed grazing system over the course of 3 years. Really great turnout for our public hearings. A real cross section in the agriculture industry showed up to testify, and we've received real solid bipartisan support. The Senate committee did vote unanimously to move that bill forward to the full Senate. Additionally, we talk about producer-led watershed grants. That program has been exceedingly successful and receives bipartisan support. The administration backs the efforts of farmers working together throughout the state, centered around different watersheds. They expanded access to participate in producer-led watersheds, and we're looking for an increase in funding because we've been oversubscribed with those dollars, and we're also asking for an increase in the maximum grant awarding from $40,000 to $50,000. The nitrogen optimization pilot program continues to be successful, studying the impacts of commercial fertilizer, both on land quality, water quality, and crop yields. Again, a program that's utilized throughout our producer-led watershed producer-led watershed programs, and another tool in the toolbox there. We're asking to continue the funding at $1 million annually, so $2 million over the 2-year budget cycle. And then we're asking to reapprove the cover crop insurance rebate program. Again, fully subscribed program, farmers taking advantage of that. Notice the landscape throughout the state is getting more and more acres utilizing cover crops. Again, really significant water quality benefits as we continue to work to mitigate the impact our agriculture activities have and show the government that we are continuing to work with them. We want to increase the funding to $1 million annually. Currently, that sits at $800,000. So a $200,000 per year increase to that. Again, very popular program, bipartisan support. It's always nice to have items that are supported by both parties when we talk to this with legislators in the Capitol. Continuing on this, our top priority this session is to reauthorize the Agriculture Road Improvement Program. Last session, we were able to get $150 million authorized into that program. Continues to pay dividends as we improve those roads that are utilized most by our producers, our processing partners. The program also incorporates forestry and our lumber industry around the state. The governor put $50 million into that program this year. As we talk to lawmakers in the Capitol, there's a strong interest to keep that funding at $150 million going forward. Again, targeted at economic activity on agriculture roads, first mile in, and what it does is really requires that projects upon completion can no longer post roads for weight limits. We've seen a significant interest in this around the state by towns, counties, villages, and they are already calling, asking if this program is going to be reauthorized. Awards are granted based on economic activity, and then we try to find a geographical inclusion around the state. So the projects are important. It's not necessarily how big the farm is, but it really encompasses all activities. So the number of employees, reduction in gas by rerouting around posted roads. Again, very, very popular program within the legislature. I think the governor dropped the funding to $50 million because he knew the legislature would probably bring that back up. And then we continue to work with our legislature to get programs and policies in place that will promote increased participation for commercial driver's license, really critical to our farms and our processors out there. In 2023, there was a bill passed, and we want that reauthorized. Again, helping farms find workers, develop their skills, and get them on the farm, being able to drive our equipment. Continuing with our budget priorities and other things we're talking about, dairy research and education, critical. The UW Dairy Innovation Hub has been going gangbusters. That is funded at $7.8 million annually on 3 UW campuses, including Madison, River Falls, and Platteville. They're coming up with their UW Innovation Hub symposium in the next few weeks. Really great opportunity. If you see emails come across, please register and join that. There is a virtual option this year. So if you have an opportunity to see what they're doing, the good work that they're doing on those campuses, please feel free to join. And then our Farm and Industry Short Course, an issue we've been working on pretty significantly over the last couple budget cycles. The program at UW-Madison was dropped, and our partners up at UW-River Falls unilaterally offered to take that course. However, they've done it without any funding, and the program continues to languish up there with very few people to be able to bring into the cohort. And they're asking for some funding at $350,000 annually to build out programming and promote the course. They would like to see a minimum of 25 people in that course. It's a 16-week course. People are really familiar with it, very popular within the agriculture community. A lot of our members have participated in that, and really receives good input from our legislative partners. And we're going to try again to get that funding for River Falls to continue to have a really robust farm and industry short course in Wisconsin. It's worldwide renowned for the teaching that goes on there, and really helps keep people focused on Wisconsin when we talk about dairy, keeps us right at the center of those conversations. So really important. And again, as we look at our continued priorities, dairy processing grants, and our Wisconsin Ag Exports Program, two critical aspects of dairy farming. We have robust processing capacity in our state, and we want to build on that as we look at, maybe shrinking export markets in the short term. This is an opportunity for our Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection to get out and do trade missions around the world, and also bring countries here to tour our farms and processing facilities and promote Wisconsin dairy. Been great programs, but you can see that we're looking to increase the funding on both of those programs and really encourage further development here in Wisconsin. And then a few things on the outskirts that we continue to talk about are opposing efforts to legalize the retail sale of raw milk and advertising of raw milk. We expect another effort this session, another legislative draft that would allow for the retail sale of raw milk, and we continue to educate lawmakers and the administration on the dangers of raw milk. Currently, especially with current state of highly pathogenic avian influenza or bird flu, and the H5N1 strain that's been infecting dairy cattle. Currently, Wisconsin has 0 positive tests, but still the raw milk issue is a real issue of concern, and we know that pasteurization works. So we want to continue to drive milk processing through our processing partners. The Wisconsin Livestock Facility Siting Law at Cap 51 in Wisconsin is the way that we regulate farms in local communities, and we want to bolster that law as we see more and more local communities try to regulate farms around the livestock siting law through manure storage ordinances or operational ordinances. So continuing to promote that, let people know that that is the only way to regulate farms in Wisconsin through our livestock facility siting. And if counties or towns want to regulate their farms in their community, that is the process to do that. So we're talking with the administration, certainly with DATCAP, Secretary Randy Romanski, letting him know what's happening. We're also working with the Wisconsin Towns Association and Wisconsin Counties Association and local communities as they develop these ordinances to ensure that dairy is represented and all factors are considered before implementing these abrasive ordinances. And really quickly, just walk through the timeline for our budget, the size of our budget, and the scope of what we're doing. It is a 2-year budget cycle. The current fiscal year will end on June 30th, and the cost to continue will maintain the current funding from our previous budget if no budget is signed by then. Again, a lot of political dynamics going on that could prevent an on-time budget this year. A lot of speculation is going on here in Madison. But Joint Finance Committee chairs continue to believe that they're going to be able to get this budget done on time, get it to the governor to go through his veto review process, and get this budget signed by July 1st. But stay tuned. That's changing almost daily, the estimates on what's going to happen there. Governor's budget is the largest in state history at $120 billion. Again, a projected $4 billion surplus, and also other circumstances impacting the deliberations on our budget include our fiscal conditions and impacts in Washington. As we all know, there's a lot of unrest and uncertainty in Washington right now. That certainly comes down to Wisconsin, and our lawmakers and administration are certainly taking those into account and watching things very closely as they happen in Washington. So how things have happened thus far: in January, the legislature was sworn into office, and then the governor gave his state of the state also in January. In February, he unveiled his budget. The budget starts and ends with the governor. He introduced his state budget, sent it over to the legislature, who continue to work on that. They'll take pieces and portions of what the governor has submitted, and then they will add their priorities. And that's the process the Joint Finance Committee is going through now, having toured the state and now diving into really the nuts and bolts of budget writing. In May through Memorial Day, Joint Finance is doing their work. In June, the full Assembly and Senate will deliberate on what the Joint Finance Committee has done. And then on July 1st, we're supposed to have a governor's signature and a new budget going forward. But again, keep in mind all the issues that are facing our lawmakers and governor at this time. We're hoping we can get that done. We're optimistic that will get done in time. But if it doesn't, we do have a cost to continue, and then we will just continue funding on the same budget level that we had over 23 to 25. And then you may have been paying, if you've been paying attention, the Supreme Court recently handed down a decision on the last governor's budget that created a 400-year K-12 school funding formula, and that is in effect for the next 400 years. Very controversial. The Supreme Court took a case after the Republican legislature sued, and they came up with their decision last month now, so mid-April, handed down their decision to uphold the governor's veto. That has also had a significant impact on the way the Republican majorities are approaching this budget. I'd like to have Shawn come in here and kind of speak to some of the political ramifications of that and how that really is impacting our budget cycle. Shawn?
You want to jump ahead, Chad, on the slide?
Sure.
So welcome and thank you again. Chad mentioned that I do contract lobbying work for DBA. Honored to do that. I work closely with Chad. Chad ended his comments about the Supreme Court. Wisconsin has an elected Supreme Court, which is kind of unique for states around the country. Those races that were not surprising are very close in Wisconsin and have become very partisan, even though it's a nonpartisan office. Right now, there's been in state history 7 members of the state Supreme Court. Currently, there's now a 4-3 liberal majority, and it's 2023 was the first time since 2010 that the liberals have controlled the court. The longest serving justice this past spring, Ann Walsh Bradley, decided not to run. She was a liberal who was elected in 1995. Therefore, that triggered her seat was up, a 10-year term, and she decided to not run, as we mentioned. And April 1st, as you know, was a huge state Supreme Court race. It was for the philosophical control of the court. We'll talk about why that matters. Chad was going to talk about that at the end of why that impacts us. But that philosophical control really determines what direction, what cases the court will take. And the race had impact, of course, here in the state, as it impacts how state rulings or a lot of the things that Scott Walker and his administration had done in the past maybe come up because a liberal court is looking at those again, such as Act 10, such as other things, such as the way the differentiation between the executive and legislative branch who has control. Susan Crawford was a Dane County Circuit judge. She ran, she's a prosecutor, and she also is originally from Chippewa Falls, so some outstate roots. She ran as a liberal. Brad Schimmel was the attorney general, got elected in 2014 under Scott Walker. serve, but duly elected his own self, served one term. After he was defeated in 2018 by Josh Call, our current incumbent AG, Schimmel then got elected to Waukesha County Circuit Court, a conservative. Again, not a Democrat or Republican, not a partisan race, not in the fall, in the spring. However, everything has kind of seemed to become partisan these days. The results were surprising, the number in the end, but when you look at the race and kind of follow through it, it wasn't surprising that Crawford won. The margin may be somewhat surprising, but she did win statewide by 10 points. A couple things in that race. No doubt this was the most expensive race for Supreme Court. That's on top of the race 2 years ago where Janet Protasevich ran in the most expensive race when she beat former Justice Dan Kelly. Couple things happened. The state reacted to Elon Musk. He was in Green Bay. Many of you are from that area, maybe saw him on your local TV. Musk was up there, really endorsed, saw this as a proxy on the Trump administration. And then once again, we always talk about rural-urban divide. And Chad and I work in a partisan building, but we also work in a very geographically divided atmosphere in Madison. And you saw rural voters did not turn out in the numbers to match urban voters. And Crawford ran up huge numbers again in Dane County, Milwaukee County, but also cities like La Crosse, Green Bay, Eau Claire, and north of Milwaukee, and then Kenosha as well. And then lastly, Crawford also did something that state Supreme Court candidates on the liberal side have done the last 4 races, and they picked up swing areas again. Donald Trump, as you know, won this state by less than 1 percentage point. Tammy Baldwin, a Democrat, only won it by 1 percentage point last year. Really saw urban-rural divide. But what Crawford was able to do was pick up those votes in the urban area, but she won the state's key swing areas, Green Bay, Fox Valley, western Wisconsin, where I'm from, La Crosse, Eau Claire area. She was winning those seats that presidential candidates against Donald Trump had not won in the 3 times that he had run for office, winning 2 of those elections. Chad, next slide, please. So the impact of this moving forward, as I said, Crawford is taking over a 4-3 liberal majority. She will maintain the liberal control of that court. So this will be the second session that they will have control. She will take office on July 31st of 2025 and will serve for 10 full years on the court. Again, 7 members. Interesting why this race was kind of for all the marbles, not only nationally to see if it could stymie some of the things from Washington and the Trump administration, but also the direction of Wisconsin. Liberals now control the court, if you will, for 4-3 liberal leaning side. Supreme Court races in Wisconsin are going to be up in 2026, 2027. Massive races again. However, maybe will not have as much of an impact philosophically because both of those seats that are up are conservative seats. Justice Rebecca Bradley and Justice Annette Ziegler will be up in 2027. Liberals then can go on offense and expand the court potentially to 5-2 if they defeat Rebecca Bradley, or even if they defeat Annette Ziegler if she runs again, either one of them in 2027. It could see a 6-1 majority potentially. Now, Chad, don't get ahead of myself here, so don't spank me on that, but I'm just saying that is the potential of all this happening. So as we talked about, some significant vetoes that are here to happen. I'll walk through these 3 and I'll let Chad wrap it up with the Calumet County case. Chad had mentioned earlier, Governor Ed voters during the last budget, Wisconsin governor has incredible power that they can do in their veto. When they get the budget from the legislature, and again, Wisconsin's one of the very few states that has a legislature of one party and a governor of another party. Very unique in this country, maybe 4 or 5 states only out of 50. When the veto is set, or the budget is sent to the governor, he has 3 options. He can sign it in its entirety, he can veto in its entirety, or he can make partial vetoes. And we have given our governor in this state, through years of precedent and law, incredible power. The governor last budget exercised the veto where he struck out some numbers. So instead of making a provision for school funding from 2024-2025, he made it from 2024- crossed out the 2025 and made it 24-25. Is that part of the governor's partial veto? The governor has been reined in the past. When I worked for Governor Doyle, he created what they called the Frankenstein veto, where he stitched sentences together to get funding mechanisms. That has been outlawed in state constitution now. Governor Thompson, some of you may remember, did the Vanna White veto after the popular Wheel of Fortune poll person where he changed specific letters and words. That has been outlawed. However, this liberal-leaning court, you can say it's partisan or not, their interpretation was that Governor Tony Evers' veto of striking out numbers was legal. So that allowed for a $325 increase per pupil per student per year, or per pupil per year for the next 400 years. The other things that they may look at is federal redistricting. Wisconsin is a split partisan state, very much so. Again, unique because we have one Democratic senator and one Republican senator. Only one of 3 states in the nation have that dynamic in the U.S. Senate. However, we have a 6-2 congressional Republican advantage. Will the Supreme Court look at the federal congressional district maps? Could put races in western Wisconsin and southeast Wisconsin up for grabs, both held by Republicans. Will the new Supreme Court look at Act 10? Governor Walker's signature legislation, no doubt was controversial, but now been in impact for nearly 15 years, that we got rid of collective bargaining rights for public employees. One of the angles they may look at is the public employees that were exempted from that were police and fire. Is that unfair to the other public employee unions? Could really rock the dynamics of this state if they were to look at that and overturn. And lastly, one that's really on top of the mind of our lawmakers is the literacy veto. It is a bill that passed the legislature with a governor veto because the fight is over who controls funding, either the executive branch or the state, the executive branch, the governor, or the legislature, how to fund a program. Literacy happens to be the program, but it has higher dynamic impact between legislative and executive branch going forward. That is top of mind for lawmakers, especially on the Republican side, as they go into the budget. And Chad, I know you have one specific case you want to talk about before we wrap up here.
Yeah, but I just really want to emphasize that the goings on in the Supreme Court are really changing the dynamic in the Capitol and have all lawmakers walking on thin ice trying to figure out how the Supreme Court's going to rule. One particular case I just want to highlight is in Calumet County. A lawsuit was filed against the DNR challenging their authority to permit CAFOs prior to any adverse action occurring. That case was filed. The DNR won that case in Calumet County. They went to the appellate court where it was upheld, and now the challenge is coming to the Supreme Court. Again, the majority matters, the Supreme Court matters. It impacts your business operations on the ground, and this is a case we're watching very closely. We don't know the timing of this ruling from the Supreme Court. Arguments have to be had yet, and we're probably looking at a late 2025, maybe even into 2026 before we even get a ruling on that. But that really speaks to the matter of whether DNR has the authority to require CAFO permitting, the WPDES permit. So really something we're watching closely, impacts us more than it should. But the Supreme Court is very, very important. As Shawn outlined the other cases, everybody in Madison, in the state capitol, is watching what the Supreme Court is going to do. And I just really wanted to run down. Oh, Shawn, did you have something else?
Oh, I just think because we kind of, Chad, get prepared maybe for a couple questions here. Chad and I put together a list of legislative leaders in front of you. Many of you know those players, especially folks like Robin Voss, is longtime speaker, the longest serving speaker in state history. Good relationship with him from Southeast Wisconsin. Joint Finance Committee members, we have some good friends, Howard Markline, where many of our members are from Southwest Wisconsin. Tony Kurtz in the Assembly, and a new member we're really excited to work with is Karen Hurd out of Clark County, which is great dairy country. And we have a new Senate Ag Committee chair, Pat Teston. Next slide, Chad. And then one more, and then we'll wrap up here, is we have great committees we work with. The Agriculture Committee, Travis Tranel is one of the only farmers in the state legislature, the Transportation Committee, and then we have a strong Agriculture Committee and a strong Senate Transportation Committee. So I guess our point to you is dairy is alive and well in the Capitol. We need your support. Chad's got a call to action for you. Thank you for your support. Good luck with your spring planting. But don't forget that we need you to talk to your lawmakers back home, especially during June Dairy Breakfast and when we host farm tours. Chad, thank you for letting me participate.
Yep. Sorry, everybody. I was going to try to give us 5 minutes for Q&A, but if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll try to get to those real quickly. I don't see anything in there, but want to make sure that you know how to reach myself and Shawn if you have questions. And our big takeaway, or the big ask that we have for you, is to reach out to your lawmakers and talk about issues that are impacting you on the local level. They are interested in that. And if you need information, don't hesitate to give me a call. I can provide a whole host of resources for you. And just reach out and make that communication to your lawmaker, state representative, and state senator. And they will be very, very helpful. Very, very appreciative of your contact. They want to hear from farmers. I don't see any questions in there. Shawn, anything else to wrap this up?
I am good, Chad. Be well and be safe in the spring planting. We'll see you in June Dairy Month for sure.
Yep. I look forward to seeing many of you over the course of the summer as we come up to June Dairy Month, and we'll be doing some farm tours. Obviously, the June Dairy Breakfast season will hit. I know a lot of lawmakers participate in that. So please introduce yourself to those folks. And again, good luck with your spring planting, and we'll see you soon. I think that's it. Thanks, everybody.